TFL EV is brought to you by Flow Charger, maker of reliable, high-quality charging stations for your electric vehicle.
Hey everybody, I've got a great video for you today because we are bringing back the Loveland Trials, the world's toughest EV test, and we're revamping it to make it super special. So it's going to be a three-phase test, and the first stage is going to be a drive to Electrify America about 30 miles down the road, and then a charging test. Let's get into it. Alright, so the Nissan Ariya, we are starting today's test with 20% state of charge, and this is a really fantastic test because we are driving from Boulder, Colorado at an elevation of roughly 5,000 feet all the way up to the top of a mountain, Loveland Pass, which has an elevation of 11,000 feet. Pretty impressive, but we're going to do it in a couple of different stages. Now the first stage, we're going to drive to Golden, Colorado and plug into a high-power DC fast charger and see how long it takes to charge up to 80%. So in this test, we're not only getting some range testing, but we're also getting charging. We're going to do some autonomous driving features. We're going to check out the Regen going down a mountain. This is going to be a full comprehensive review of the new Nissan Ariya. All right, let's go do some charging. Everybody, so we are down to 9% state of charge on our way to the DC fast charger. Let's see if the car can actually find the DC fast charger for us. So it's searching for charging stations near our current location, and it looks like that's it, the Electrify America. So I'm going to go ahead and click that button, setting it as a new destination. There we go. It says it's 7.5 miles away. We'll be there at 12:14 p.m. and the car's predicting 26 miles of range at 9%. So we're going to pull in there pretty close to dead, as you would on a road trip, and then we're going to charge it up to 80% as you might on a road trip and see how long that takes. All right, everybody, we made it to the DC fast charger. We are sitting at 7% state of charge, and now we're going to plug it in, start a timer, and see how long it takes to get up to 80% state of charge. I've initiated the charging session on the app, and the second I plug in, I'm going to start the timer and see how long it takes. Now, this car, according to Nissan, should take about 40 minutes to get 80% state of charge. It's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Everything should be pretty nice and toasty in this Nissan Ariya. It's initiating the charge, the timer is going. This is all part of the experience. How long does it take to actually start charging the car? We're 2 seconds in. All right, there we go. The session has started. We are currently pulling 71 kilowatts. Now the Ariya is capable of up to 130 kW, which does not sound that impressive when you consider like that Hyundai Ioniq 5 next to us can pull well over 200, but it's all about the area under the curve. How long can it sustain 130? Because that is really what's going to dictate the charging time. And you can see we're already up to 125 at 7% state of charge. So I say we get a quick sandwich, get some lunch, and then see how long it takes to get up to 80%. Right, we just hit 80% state of charge. Look, we're still pulling nearly 80 kilowatts. Let's see how long that took. 34 minutes and 15 seconds. So it's time to unplug and hit the road. Now, to put that into perspective, we got 73%, and that's roughly 194.2. So, 33 minutes. It cost us $22.68. We added 63.36 kilowatt hours. And once again, that total time was 33 minutes and some change. Now, this car is EPA rated at 267 miles on a single charge. We got 73%, so it's 194 miles in 33 minutes. Not bad at all. Oop. It's over here. Beautiful. After tax, the total was $24.38, and there's my membership saving for that 63 kilowatt hour. So pretty good. So you look at that number, right? 130 kilowatt peak on paper, and you're like, that doesn't seem that impressive. But you got to consider how long it can sustain those higher numbers. And the Nissan Ariya actually did a pretty darn good job. So I'm pretty impressed with the charging curve on this car. All right, on to phase number 2. So in phase 2, or stage 2 of the Loveland trials, we are driving from the foothills of the Rocky Mountains straight up a mountain, 51 miles of steep hills. And we're gonna see how much battery we use and how the vehicle performs in some of the twisties. And immediately, if you look in front of us, Alex, you can see that the turns have already begun. Now, this is a especially twisty part of Interstate 70 that we call the Python. And it's a great test to see how some of the autonomous functionality works on the Nissan Ariya. Now, of course, still level 2, but there's a little button here. If you wanna get close to that, you see that little blue button? So we can go ahead and push that button, and that's gonna engage the suite of assistance functionality. And now it's talking at us. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to engage the cruise control, set it to the speed limit at 65. And if you look in here, Alex, you can see a couple of interesting things. So first of all, the 3 lanes of this interstate, along with some of the vehicles that the car sees, including what's in our blind spot and what's directly in front of us. And then up here, there's a little steering wheel. Do you see that little green steering wheel right there? So there's a couple different color steering wheel depending on what's engaged. So you can see the lane change assist just went unavailable there when it goes blue. But yeah, the car has lane centering. It can also change lanes all by itself, and it's got adaptive cruise. So it's monitoring my eyes right now. Now, one thing I don't like about that is, like, sometimes I drive, in the thinking man's position, and then the car gets really upset that I'm not paying attention to the road. So the sensors are extremely sensitive, and sometimes if you have like a hand up here, it gets upset thinking that you're not paying attention either. It really does a good job of tracing the lanes. I really haven't had to intervene that much. Now it's saying slow vehicle ahead, change lanes. Hands on wheel, check traffic, and it's changing the lanes for me all by itself there. So it does a good job. Once you're in a lane just cruising along, I find it doesn't pogo, it doesn't do any weird like surges or kind of start stops, but it's a little finicky. Clearly it is not scared of the mountainous roads up here in Colorado. It's able to maneuver a lot of these turns, and the Python is a really wavy and twisty part of I-70, and it's doing pretty well. It's just there's a lot of symbols and graphics going at you that would take some time to get used to if you were to use the system on a daily basis. On pre-mapped roadways, you can drive the Ariya hands off, still paying attention, of course, and then once you're off those pre-mapped roadways, you do have to put your hand on the steering wheel, and that's where things get a little bit annoying. So one thing I really don't like about the Nissan Ariya driver assistance technology is it requires a lot of torque to the steering wheel to tell the car that you're here paying attention. So look, give it a lot of spin before it actually realizes that you haven't dozed off and fallen asleep. And I've also noticed it's a pretty twisty area here, and the car is really slowing down a lot for the turns, but the speed limit's 55. Most of the traffic is doing 60, and the car was kind of cruising along there at like 49. But the most annoying thing is just the amount of torque you have to really give the wheel to let the car know that you're still paying attention. I mean, a lot of cars, you give it just like a little squeeze or just a little spin, and it will be able to realize that. But I just got a warning here: hands on wheel, HD map under surveillance. But yeah, and when the system does deactivate, it sounds like a bomb is about to go off here. So steering wheel warning light, a couple places. Give it a little twist. I'm giving it a little harder twist. I'm still paying attention. Now it's beeping and flashing. It's really beeping now. It just freaks out. So that part's not so good. We have exited the highway, and now we are cruising up Loveland Pass on our way to 11,990 feet above sea level. This is a twisty 2-lane road, and I have to say the Ariya is surprisingly fun to drive. Now this one does have the E-Force all-wheel drive system with the dual motor setup, motor in the front, motor in the rear, and it's a very dynamic setup. It's really a lot of fun to drive. There's a sport mode we can engage, but of course in this test we always leave the car in normal mode. But even in normal mode, it's got a ton of push, and yes, it's a pretty high-riding crossover SUV, but there's a surprising amount of feel and a surprising amount of sportiness when you dive it into some turns. Now it is pretty heavy, and yeah, the steering is a little bit slow, but the suspension is not floating anyway, and it really comes to life on a twisty back road, which is a big surprise, especially compared to the outgoing Nissan Leaf. Now we started, of course, our hill climb with 80%. We are down to 43%. We've driven just over 50 miles, which is pretty good. Well, it's actually a huge amount of consumption. We've been averaging just 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour so far. But then, of course, when we turn around and go down the hill, we're going to regen some electricity in the battery. But that's for stage 3. Anyways, we're about to complete stage 2. Car's been running great. The accelerator is pretty interesting. You get a nice push of acceleration, but it's very gradual in normal mode until about 45, 50 miles an hour. And then once you get to 45, you get the full enchilada, you get the full beans, and then it really takes off. But it's pretty slow right off the line. It's very interesting how Nissan has programmed the system. I think it's so that it doesn't feel herky-jerky, especially for an unfamiliar EV driver. But you want to pan to the right, Alex? Look at that, we still have tons of snow. It's 42 degrees Fahrenheit up here in the Rocky Mountains. It was 59 when we left Boulder, so it's definitely cooled down some. Clear, dry roads though for the most part. And we'll stop up here and get some mileage totals. So here at the top of the mountain, we are sitting at 42%. It's predicting 95 miles of range, averaging 1.7 miles per kilowatt hour, 51.5 miles. So time to turn around and make our way back into civilization. Stage 3 of the Loveland trials, we're checking out the regen capability of this new Nissan Ariya. So as we come down the mountain, we started at the very top with 42%, but that was roughly 50 miles or so ago, and we're down to 39%. And I saw a high of about 44, because granted, there are some slight uphills here and there. Now as we kind of come down I-70 here toward Golden, Colorado, back toward the flatter lands, we're sitting at 39%. If you ever wonder how steep this grade is, this truck will give you a good sense of how steep it is. It's got smoke pouring off its brakes. Never a good sign. Now, let's talk about the regen on this vehicle. So you do have this button down here called E-Step. See that, Alex? You can engage that, and that'll act as a one-pedal driving system. It works pretty well, but it does have its shortcomings. For example, it's one pedal all the way down until about 10 miles an hour, but then after 10 miles an hour, if you're coming to a complete stop, you do have to use the pedal, which is a little bit annoying. I really would like it to decelerate you by itself all the way down to 0. And then you have to push the pedal down for the auto hold functionality as well when you're stopped. The other weird thing is that this does the same thing that the Mercedes EVs do, where it'll actually sink the pedal away from you, so it's never quite in the same place when you go to hit it. And then when you do decelerate from 10 miles an hour down to 0, it's hard to do it smoothly because it's kind of jerky. So I'm not super impressed with the brakes on this car, but we only used 3% of the battery to go 50 miles. Which is pretty darn good. So that's the new benchmark right now, 3% of the battery going 50 miles. And keep in mind, we're trying to revamp this Loveland Trials with this new 3-stage review so that you get a full comprehensive idea of what the Ariya is like. And let me give you some more thoughts on this vehicle. I think it's a good looking car. My girlfriend calls it like a transformer that grew up and became a mom. So she says it's got like some kind of cool angles, but it also has a very adult nature about it. I really like the interior. They really stepped up their game compared to other Nissan products. This kind of suede material across the dash looks good. The dual screens look nice. We also have this wood finish. The haptic controls aren't bad actually, because they do give you some feedback when you push the climate controls there. And I like features like this. This whole middle section actually slides back and forth, which is pretty cool. And then you've got this cubby that'll actually deploy. Where's the button? There it is. Okay, shoot there, Alex. Like she deploy a cubby. Look at that. At the push of a button. You have to push and hold the button though, so you don't take off your kneecap. Parts of the interior not so nice. Like some of the plastics are a little cheap and rattly. But the biggest issue I have with this car is actually the price: $62,700 and some change. That's a lot of money for an electric crossover in this category. You could get a Tesla Model Y long range for less than that, and the Tesla would apply for the federal tax credit. This vehicle is built in Japan, so it doesn't qualify for that $7,500 tax credit, which is definitely worth considering. I also love the steering wheel, perforated leather steering wheel. I like the seats, super squishy leather seats. They feel fantastic. So lots of really good parts to this Ariya, but is it worth $63,000? You're gonna have to let me know in the comment section below. What would you get if that was your money? Would you get this vehicle? Would you get one of the German competition, one of the Korean competition? I'd love to hear your feedback. All right, so we got the final section of stage 3 here. We got to get from Golden back to Boulder. That's roughly 25-30 miles or so, and we'll run some numbers at the end. All right, back to the office here in Boulder, Colorado, and let's take a look at some of the information from our drive. So Alex, if you want to kind of show the screen here. Okay, so here's the information. So since we hit the charger, we drove 125.6 miles. Again, it was like 30 miles or so to the charger, so that brings the total up to 150 and a bit, but let's talk about these numbers. Averaged 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour, 54 miles an hour, 2 hours and 26 minutes, and we are sitting at 31% state of charge and 106 miles remaining. So let me hop out here and we'll do some concluding thoughts. You know, I'm pretty impressed with the Ariya. The charging was much better than expected. You see that 130 kW peak on paper and you're like, that's not very good, but just over 30 minutes to go from 7 to 80% is pretty impressive, right around $24. It's a comfortable, stylish car with good interior room. The things that let it down, not super impressed with the driver assistance technology and not impressed with the price on this top spec model at over 62 grand. Get a more basic model. If you don't need all-wheel drive, you can definitely save some money. Well, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. This has been Tommy behind the camera, Camera Ninja Alex. We'll see you in the next video.